All right, we are now live. So I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jody Foster. I'm the Communications Director at the Regional District of Central Okanagan. I also work as one of the many public information officers when our Emergency Operations Center is activated here in the Central Okanagan. I'd like to start the meeting today by acknowledging that we're gathering today on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Syilx Okanagan people. And I also did want to acknowledge that the topic today about landslides and floods that can happen in areas where we've had a wildfire are real for many across the province. Today, we're focusing on the neighborhoods of the northwest side of the Regional District of Central Okanagan that was burned as part of the White Rock Lake wildfire. There are many other communities that were also impacted, and while much of this information might be useful for you for general information, we'd also encourage you to get in touch with your own local governments to find out specifics for your areas. We have online with us experts from a number of areas, and our purpose here today is to help residents in the Northwest Side understand some of the risks that are resulting after the wildfire. Each of the speakers has different responsibilities in the area, but really what we're working all together towards is ensuring that the residents in the area are safe and prepared for any future events that could happen after the wildfire. We're going to go through each of the speakers and I'll introduce them as we go through, but we're going to start with Steve Schell, and he's our Recovery and Resiliency Manager that joined us after the fire. And he's just going to give you a quick update on what's been happening in the recovery office. So go ahead, please, Steve.
Great. Thanks a lot, Jody, and good afternoon, everyone. So I'll just give you a quick update. So in terms of the recovery update for today, I'm proud to share that the Regional District of the Central Okanagan Resiliency and Recovery Center has made some significant progress since our last live stream event. We've been working very closely with Emergency Management BC, the Canadian Red Cross, the Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure, the Ministry of Forests, Lands, Natural Resource Operations, Rural Development, and the Kelowna Fire Department. In April, our office saw an increase in telephone requests with 17 callers seeking additional information to help understand our programs available to them. So if you need more information about what's available, please check out our website that is set up right now. It's at www.rdco.recovery.com. And I think you'll find a very good site to get some good information. We had a number of caseworkers hired to support our program, and our caseworkers now have completed capacity needs and assessments for 47 residents whose structures were destroyed or partially damaged, and have identified any gaps in support available to help them recover from this traumatic event. An additional 50 residents told us they did not require any help or did not respond to our request for assistance. So of those 47 capacity needs and assessments we did complete, 62% were primary residences, 38% were secondary residences, and of all that people that were contacted, approximately 19% didn't have any insurance coverage at all. Our capacity work is now complete. Our caseworkers are in their final stages and have moved on. They completed their amazing work on April 14th and have done some good work in support of the community since October. So what does it look like going forward? Well, we're working very closely with the Canadian Red Cross, and they have case managers in place that will be available as soon as May the 19th, 20th, and 21st. They'll be able to meet with the public between the hours of 10 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the afternoon at Parker's Cove, 175 Westside Road North. And on May the 24th, 25th, 26th, and 27th, between the hours of 10 o'clock and 5 o'clock in Vernon at the Schubert Center, 3505 30th Avenue. If you want more information about those meetings that are coming up, please call their number, 1-800-863-6582, and they'll be glad to pass on any information about those programs. In terms of our building and development update, again, I'm proud to say that the Community Services Planning and Inspection Department have been very busy and have approved 100% of the 53 demolition permits that have been requested to complete. Of that, they've also completed a number of building permits, 4 done to date, or complete to date, and the building underway. 1 RV permit's been issued and 1 development permit's been issued as well. Again, if you need to talk to any staff, they are available to answer any questions and assist you work through that process. With the debris management and hazard tree reimbursement program, there has been a number of residents who have responded to our caseworkers regarding this program. It was created by the RDCO with funding support from the Canadian Red Cross and Emergency Management BC. The Red Cross is confirming who did and who did not have insurance and if they would be eligible for this program and the associated costs to remove the concrete and contaminated soil or hazardous trees. In addition, the regional district has also confirmed a disposal site located at the MOTI vendor pit area, which is just past the Northwest Garbage Transfer Station, available to dump concrete and any hazard trees from those impacted properties. So again, that is available to residents for this program. In terms of the post-wildfire natural hazard risk analysis work, Jennifer Clark is here today and she'll provide you an update on the report that she completed on January 14th. In that report, she did identify a number of recommendations to address. So I'm proud to say that we can confirm a number of actions have been taken. First one is that we've developed some pamphlets and also have posted some preparedness guidelines to Get Prepared BC and the federal Get Ready emergency programs have also been posted on the recovery website. So that information is available to the public for their information. Second, we have issued a number of sandbags and sand has been delivered to fire halls 101 and 102 to help those residents prepare for the potential increase in landslides and floods. Third, a culvert assessment was completed and 11 residents were notified to ensure that their culverts are clear of any issues so they don't create problems within the community. Ministry of Transportation Infrastructure was also shared that information and they are taking steps to address those culverts as well. Fourth, a hydrological hazard assessment was approved on May the 5th, and a consultant has been hired to complete this work. So that work is ongoing right now, and we're looking forward to seeing the results of that work. Fifth, landslide and flooding risk posters have been established in the community near those mailboxes. You may see those when you go to pick up your mail, providing information regarding those potentials for landslides. We're also going to establish a number of large signs in 3 locations at the Northwest Garbage Transfer Station, main fire hall at Clinty Beach, and along the Westside Road near Fire Hall 101, or 102, I should say. And then finally, the Okanagan Shuswap Natural Resource District is conducting the wildfire suppression rehabilitation effort to address those fire guards that you may have seen in the community and regarding any other wildfire impacts. So I guess the message is that in an event of any landslide or flooding, a threat to the public regarding safety, their property or infrastructure, please call 911. Or if you have any other concerns, don't be afraid to reach out to the road maintenance contractor, AIM Roads, at 1-866-222-4204. And finally, I'd like to just to give it a bit of an update regarding the water fill station. The RDCO has offered this free potable water filling station to residents of the Northwest Side Fire Hall, 7355 Westside Road, since people returned from being evacuated from their homes. As this need has declined and the water service is no longer needed for those residents who have restored water, we will be removing that service on Tuesday, May the 31st. So while the Estamont private water system remains do not consume notice, a number of those customers have made alternate arrangements for potable drinking water already to reduce the need for that fill station. So it's a lot of information. Again, please refer to our websites. If you need any information about the phone numbers, don't be afraid to reach out to our Recovery Resiliency Center. And with that, Jody, that concludes my update for today.
That's great. Thanks so much, Steve. And yeah, that is lots of different bits and pieces of information. And as we have all through the process, as those bits and pieces change, the most current information always is on the recovery page at rdco.com/recovery, and it gets updated as things continue to change. We're going to go now over to Jennifer Clark. She's from Clark Geoscience, and she has helped both the province and the regional district doing assessments of the area since the wildfire. And Jennifer is going to do a presentation from us, including, I'm going to just start a slide presentation here. Jen, did you want to say anything before I start that? Oh, except you're muted, please. Once every meeting.
Yeah, always has to be one of them.
Yes.
Hi, thank you for inviting me today. You can go ahead, Jody, with the presentation. I'll talk through it.
There we go. We should have it on there now.
I do not see it.
All right, let's try one more time. Apologies.
Okay.
How about now? There we
Great.
go.
Thank you very much. As Jody mentioned, my company was retained by the province and by RDCO to conduct a post-wildfire natural hazard risk assessment for the White Rock Lake fire. These more detailed assessments are initiated immediately after a wildfire, and a reconnaissance assessment was done in August with this more detailed assessment completed kind of late fall of, after the fire. The results were presented and are available on the RDCO website that Steve mentioned. So go ahead, Jody, please. The White Rock Lake wildfire affected an area over 800 square kilometers. And this map here shows you that the area that was burned. The provincial assessment work and RDCO assessment work was completed for the portion of the fire that drains into the Okanagan Lake, which represents approximately half of this area. So the work completed for the province included 3 large catchments, the Aquesus, Naswedo, and Whiteman Creek watersheds, which drain into the lake and primarily affect Okanagan Indian Band Reserve lands and the North Okanagan Regional District. And then the portion to the south, extending from the West Shore Estates area all the way down to Ewing's Landing, includes those areas under RDCO jurisdiction. And the purpose of the assessment work was to identify post-wildfire hazards, natural hazards, and to evaluate the risk to the community, and to provide conceptual level recommendations on how to mitigate those risks. So what I'm presenting to you today is a presentation that I did to the regional board, Central Okanagan board, and is a refresher of that information. So the map that you see here also has some different colors. The red color represents high burn severity. This is where there's high burn severity, medium, low, and areas that were unburned are shown on this map. Next slide, please, Jody. And the reason why we distinguish between these different levels of severity is because it also signals a different level of concern with respect to natural hazard. The areas that were mapped as red for high vegetation burn severity also signal those areas most prone to flooding or landslide hazards. This photo here shows you an area that was burned at high severity. And in these areas, we have a complete loss of the forest cover. There are no needles or leaves on the trees. And the ground surface is lacking all shrubs, woody debris, and organic soil material, over the soil. So it's exposing the mineral soils to erosion and other processes. So it's quite relevant to map these areas. If you could go to the next slide, please. So with high burn severity, we can also have an alteration of the soil structure. And on heavily high severe burn areas, we can develop water repellent soils or hydrophobic soils. So where the forest is blackened, we've lost all the organic material. The soil structure is also altered and develops this hydrophobicity. These photos here show the results of a water percolation field test, where after removing the mineral surface soils, a volume of water is poured onto the soil surface, and the time to absorb the soil is measured. And both these photos here show what water poured onto the soil looks like after a period of 40 seconds, which signals the development of water repellent soils. And we did find evidence of water repellent soils in this study area. Next slide, please. This map here shows the RDCO area, namely the Killiney Beach area and the Estamont area outlined in red, where over, I think, 75 residents were burned. The RDCO study focused on 34 of those properties, and they were chosen because they lay adjacent to either the lake or other streams or seepages. And so they were deemed to have a higher environmental or hazardous conditions risk. Next slide, please. This is a view of the Killiney area, showing the burned forest above the neighborhood. There's a fire guard line that crosses the left side of the photo that was put in during the fire. Next slide, please. This is another view showing the area upslope of the Estamont neighborhood and the road running through the center. Left-hand side is Attenborough Road with Westside Road just below it. Next slide, please. This is the view of the same two areas from the lake, where you can see the different levels of burn severity. Again, the blackened trees indicating high burn severity. Sugarloaf Mountain is visible in the background, and we just can't quite see the top of the slopes above the areas. Next slide, please. So I mentioned before that the Natural Hazard Risk Assessment looks at the potential for flooding, landslides, debris flow, or sediment-laden floods. And within the RDCO study area, we identified some post-wildfire hazards. Higher peak flows on the small streams that run through the area was identified. And as you may or may not be familiar with the drainages in that area, it's a complicated system of channels. We're working with some others on mapping and further refining the maps of the streams in this area, and that will form kind of a next phase of work. But these photos here, on the left-hand side is a culvert off of Udell Road, showing burned properties in the area. And on the photo on the right shows a culvert underneath Westside Road in the Killiney Way area. This culvert was put in after the 2017 flooding events, when flows going down the road ditch were believed to have contributed to a landslide over 800 meters down slope to the south. And I included this example because it highlights the potential for impacts away from the channel. So even though you may not live adjacent to a channel, whenever you get a diverted stream or diverted drainages, there is a potential for instability to occur. Next slide, please. Above Westside Road, a lot of the channels go subsurface and they emerge downslope of Westside Road, kind of in the developed area. And they emerge in places as springs or seepages. And when we have changes to the hydrology in the upslope area, these can manifest in these downslope springs. So it was important to identify some of these seepage areas and for those who live here to be aware that there can also be hazards associated with elevated groundwater flows on these springs. Next slide, please. The loss of vegetation also increases the risk of erosion, soil erosion, and instability. And the photo on the left shows a small gully that was burned, where already, this was late fall, we were seeing some movement of sediment in the system. And also where the wildfire was very intense and the heat caused thermal expansion of rock, and this shattered the rock. And it could be a natural bedrock exposure that becomes shattered and unstable, or it can be a built structure, such as in this photo here that shows a retaining wall. So again, that can contribute to increased potential for landslides or rockfall. Next slide, please. One of the things I wanted to point out is that there are various elements of uncertainty. And this, oh, we lost our slide. That's okay. There's climate uncertainty. So we don't know yet, well, we know now that the slopes above the study area are essentially snow-free. And this somewhat smaller seasonal snowpack combined with spring that is kind of cool and wet has led to kind of a prolonged spring runoff period, albeit smaller. So as we move forward into the summer, these small catchments are going to be more vulnerable to those short duration, intense rainfall events. And so that is something to be aware of, is that although we're probably past the spring freshet for these small catchments in the RDCO area, the snowpack still remains in the larger watersheds, and these smaller watersheds will still be prone to flooding in the spring or summer. How do we deal with that climate uncertainty? Monitoring, watching, paying attention, regular updates through RDCO and EMBC, and the province can help understand what's coming. The second element of uncertainty is related to the potential for impacts. And it's very difficult to predict the level of impact because it's not only dependent on the runoff conditions, but also on those site-specific conditions on a property. So just because there's elevated runoff, it doesn't mean that there'll be an impact. But if you have a culvert that becomes plugged with debris or sediment, for example, then there may be an impact that results. How to deal with impact uncertainty? That's through awareness and preparation, which is what's being occurring right now. By being aware of the potential for hazards and preparing for those potential conditions, then we can reduce the potential for impact. Jody, are you able to get the slides going again?
I think again, it did a little dance, like it does happen occasionally in the.
No worries, I can speak to it. I just have some website links that I wanted to put up.
Yes. Let me just try one more time here.
Okay.
There we go. I think we are there, and now we're there.
Okay. Yeah. So what I wanted to mention is that there were some recommendations that came out of the two reports, and they deal with how to address the hazards and the risks identified. Many of these are well underway right now, increasing public awareness by distributing messaging and emergency response information. I put a link here to the recovery website on RDCO, and also in the event of an emergency, the emergency operations has a website as well for Central Okanagan. Preparing for increased runoff on private land, on your own land, is to make sure those channels are clear, to ensure that any culverts are free to accommodate any flows. Along public roads, this is the responsibility of the MOTI roads contractor, as Steve mentioned, its aim, and protecting your assets, either moving important items away from those areas at risk, or protecting. I caution about constructing ditches and berms, but on your own. But the district is aware of these measures, and stockpiling materials and equipment for protection, such as sandbags. Next slide, please. I wanted to also provide a little bit of information on how you might recognize a hazard on your property or in your community. And the first step is that you are the best persons to know what is normal and what is abnormal. So by becoming familiar with the landscape and its normal drainage channel patterns, you'll be better able to identify when things are not normal. Pay attention to weather forecasts and increase monitoring during intense rainstorms, particularly after a prolonged dry period, because as I mentioned, those water repellent soils, when they're dry, they're less able to soak up the water. So after a prolonged period of dry weather, an intense rainstorm can have very rapid runoff. Drive carefully immediately after these storms, particularly at night on the Westside Road when you can't see a washed out culvert, or if the slope below the road were to fail, and watch for any debris on the road, water flowing in roadside ditches or across the road. Never drive across a flooded road because you may not be able to see what lies underneath the flowing water. And if you live next to a stream, listen for unusual sounds such as faint rumbling, cracking trees, tumbling boulders, and watch for changes in flow. This could include a sudden stoppage of flow or abnormally dirty water. And then if you encounter any of these unusual conditions or experience a flood event, and the situation is hazardous, as Steve mentioned, to call 911. For less urgent matters or to bring something to the attention of RDCO, you can call their office directly or call MOTI roads contractor. I think others in this presentation are going to provide more information on the response side of things. So that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. And as you've said, this information is not only happening today, it's living on our website, and we'll be sending out regular information as reminders for people. But again, your assessments and specifically the mapping for people who want to take a really good look at the maps and make sure that they know where they live in respect to some of those highly burned areas, that's still, again, all on the regional district website at rdco.com/recovery. All the assessments are there. So thank you very much for that. And we're going to move on now to Sylvia Chow. She's with us from Emergency Management BC. She's the regional manager there. And she's going to give us some more general information about how to be prepared for an emergency, such as a landslide or a flood. So Sylvia, over to you.
Great. Thank you very much for the invitation to speak to you today. I am joining this meeting from the beautiful traditional territory of the Tecumseh Secwepemc Nation. Emergency Management BC partners with municipal and First Nations governments to manage the 4 pillars of emergency management. I'm sure some of you have become familiar with this over the past few years. These 4 pillars are planning and preparedness, mitigation, response, and recovery. I've been asked today to speak to you specifically about personal preparedness. We plan for vacations and dinner and renovations for our homes, our finances and grocery shopping, and the list goes on. It is also vitally important to take some time to plan for personal emergencies and make our personal plans. Part of the planning process is to understand or know the hazards. In this particular meeting, we're talking about the risk of landslides and building your emergency kits and making a plan for emergencies. Knowing the hazards may be related to the season or the geographic area that you live, or it may be a random occurrence, but you can build a personal plan just the same. You can find a lot of great information online to assist with building your personal emergency plan. I'm going to suggest without a slide at this point that should you look for more information, if you just Google Prepare BC, this will take you to the BC government website with several tools to assist with your planning. There's also a documentation on there related specifically to landslides, which you may find interesting and helpful at this time. If an event occurs and you need to shelter in place, for example, the access to your primary residence or your recreational home, if you're cut off from access, then for other reasons, maybe you need to just remain at home because there's an extended power outage. Consider what you may need in your emergency kit for staying at home and not having access to grocery stores or getting out for other assistance. Building an emergency kit to have at home will allow you to live independently for several days. My home, for example, we have enough food in my storage room to last well past 72 hours. After a couple of weeks, we would get very tired of the lack of variety, but we would be healthy and we would have the food to eat for that length of time. I think my family would get very tired of tomatoes. It's also very important to plan in case you need to evacuate your home. In advance of that, I would encourage you to pack a grab-and-go bag and keep it in a place that's easy to access. I have a grab-and-go bag in my vehicle at all times. It has the recommended stuff that is listed on the grab-and-go list on the website, as well as a few things that I've packed to increase my comfort level should I need to evacuate. Some of the things in my kit are a change of clothing, a small crank radio, a small amount of cash, a very small amount of cash, and some granola bars, also a small bag of cheesies, because that's my little treat. Ensure that you have a prescription medicine filled out for a minimum of 3 days before it expires. That's probably a good practice for any period of time, because should you need to have your medication refilled, you may not get that under 3 days. And that would be problematic if you needed to evacuate and your doctor was not in the same community where you were headed to. And have you checked with your family and friends? If you're planning to go and even do some couch surfing if you need to evacuate, make sure that you're talking to the people whose home you're going to be going to, so that they're not surprised by your showing up there in the late night hours. The next piece is to make a plan. There is a full fill in the blanks home emergency kit plan available at the website at Prepare BC. And it's free. Take advantage of it. There's no benefit to us other than we know that you're in good care if you use this plan well and make it work for you. It walks you through the communication plan for each members of your household, and it prompts planning for emergency contacts, healthcare needs for your school-aged children if they're at school when the emergency hits, or if they're at home with you. Your family pets is a big one. What are you going to do with your family pets if you need to evacuate in a hurry? Someone here suggested today that you may want to have a couple of meals planned for your pets and tucked away in their kennel if they need to be moved out in a hurry. It also walks you through utilities, insurance, local government services, where you can find more information during an emergency, places that you're going to reconnect with your family and friends should you need to evacuate. You will also want to communicate with your friends and families in advance and know how to reconnect should you get separated during an emergency. When I read through that list, it's pretty extensive, and it's very clear that it would not be possible to do that in a moment's notice. It takes dedicated time and effort. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the quote, "The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now." The same is true of emergency planning. If you don't have an emergency plan or an emergency kit yet, the second best time to plan for that and to make that kit ready is right now. A lot of planning and assessment has been conducted over the past year following the wildfire events of 2021. The Earth is a living place, and hazards do not remain static, nor are they always identifiable. Landslides and debris flow indicators can also be found online, and I would encourage you to review these indicators. Jen mentioned a few of them in her presentation as well. It's quite an extensive list online. When an emergency such as a landslide occurs, or you witness suspected landslide indicators, first of all, make sure that your family is safe. There are indicators that would recommend leaving the area immediately. These can also be found online. Call 911 to report the incident, stay away from the slide area, and if you need to evacuate your home for your own safety, then do so and implement your emergency plan. You can reach out to your local government, or you can also call the Emergency Coordination Center at 1-800-663-3456. Through that number, they will put you in touch with the regional duty manager with EMBC or with your local government. Once again, I'd like to encourage you to visit the website, and the reason I keep pushing you back there is because it's a wealth of information. There are so many documents and forms that you can use to help you build your personal plan. Wishing you well. I hope this is a nice, beautiful, quiet spring and summer. All the best, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Sylvia. And I think you're absolutely right. Here in the Okanagan, I know lots of us at one point or another over the last few years have been evacuated with either floods or fires, and we would do well to remember from one event to the next that it's good to be prepared ahead of time. And I completely agree. Your website at Prepare BC has just a real wealth of all kinds of information for planning. And like we said, specifically around floods and landslides, there's information if people in the Northwest Side are looking for that information. So thank you for sharing that with us today. Next up, we have Amy Berry. She's from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure. She's the Area Manager of Roads for the Okanagan Shuswap District. And she is going to give us a little bit of information, specifically because Westside Road that flows right through the middle of this community is under the care of the Ministry of Transportation. And Amy's going to give us some information about what to watch for on roads and who to call if we see something.
Yes, thanks. So as it's been said, my name's Amy Berry. Is it okay if I share my screen here?
Yes, it sure is.
Oh, it's disabled. That's okay. I can just mention as I go along. So with the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, we maintain all roads outside of a municipality. So that includes the regional districts, the roads within those areas. So there's two areas that the Okanagan Shuswap District maintains. It's Service Area 8 and 13. I'm in Service Area 13, which includes the Northwest Side community here, Killiney Beach, Ewing, Fintry, and those communities. So thankfully, both the South Okanagan and the Okanagan Shuswap are under AIM Roads. They're the local maintenance contractor at this time, and they have the contract from 2019 to 2029. So they'll be here for a while. And sorry, I'm just getting my, when it comes to our roads, we have a few things that people kind of get confused about. You know, there's the culvert that goes under the road, usually, if not always, maintained by us. And then there's the culverts that go underneath a driveway of a, you know, it could be a residential landowner or a commercial landowner. That would be the responsibility of whoever owns that land to maintain. So that's just one thing to do if you see something plugged underneath your driveway. It's a good opportunity for you to take the time and get it cleared out before it creates further issues for your driveway or downstream. And then things to look out for. It's been talked about already a lot from Jen and everyone else. So, we have plugged culverts or the potential to be plugged. So maybe a debris starting to build up. It could just be soil. It could be trees. It could be things like that. Lots of times you have to get out of your vehicle to look for it. So you don't see it all the time. And obviously I don't want everyone to get out of their vehicle and start looking, but if you're walking by and you notice something a little strange.
Oh, Amy, I think we're having trouble hearing you all of a sudden. Amy? Okay, well, I think we're having trouble hearing Amy, unfortunately. Amy, there we go. We were missing you for a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There.
Sorry, where did I end here?
Just if people are getting out of their cars, we don't really want them to do that. But if you happen to be walking in the neighborhood and you see something different happen.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Sorry, my wife is calling me. Okay, so if you happen to walk and you see a plugged culvert, that's something that you might look for. Same goes for any other plugged catch basins or plugged drainage appliances like catch basins. Just things to look out for so we can get ahead of it. Obviously, most of the times we don't see these things until after it happens. Another thing to look out for is any soil or slope stability issues. It could be the start of a small scale erosion or scour. Again, those are things we like to catch before it turns into a larger issue like a landslide and we have to close half the road, things like that. Another thing that we do look after in our roadside is any concerning trees. Not to say they're danger trees, but if there's a question you have, maybe it's leaning a certain way that makes you concerned, it's always a good time to call us. And for who you contact, obviously if there's emergencies, if half of the road is gone, please call 911. And for any other smaller issues that aren't an emergency yet, the first point of contact would be the maintenance contractor, AIM Roads, and they do have a 24-hour hotline, and it's 1-866-222-4204. Again, 1-866-222-4204. You can go on their website as well, it's up there. The second point of contact would be our local office. They're based out of Kelowna, but they can reach any of us. There's about 3 area managers in each area, so if I'm not available, they'll go to the next one. So, and you can call them. They have again, it's online, but 250-712-3660.
And that's the Ministry of Transportation office, right, Amy? Great.
Yeah, the Ministry of Transportation.
Perfect, yeah. Okay, and I think that is everything. Thank you very much for that. So hopefully that's useful information for residents. If you still have questions left over, that we haven't answered today, those were all based on questions that we've been getting in through the recovery office and through our website via email into our office. But if there are other pieces that you're still looking for, please don't hesitate to call us at the regional district offices. And if you haven't already, we also have an e-newsletter that's going out in the Westside area for anybody that's interested in staying updated on when we do these kinds of presentations or activities. Some of the recovery office information that Steve provided, the assessments that Jen provided. There is some links there to Prepare BC. So each of those is reflected also on the website. And then you can sign up to actually get the e-newsletter sent out to you, which comes out every couple of weeks, once a month, depending on when there's new information. So as Sylvia so aptly put it, stay well over the summer. I hope everybody has a safe and uneventful summer. And if you do need anything else, give us a call back. Thank you very much.